Paris fashion mavens were agog over an accoutrement, something on a dress that, on first blush, may appear to be offensive to PETA. Was it? And what did billionaires Kylie Jenner have to do with it? Was it an animal rights statement, a pro-hunting statement, or just a statement done for the shock of it all? That's next on the PETA Podcast. Welcome to the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo, your host for this inside look at animal rights, brought to you by PETA, the largest animal rights organization in the world. On today's episode, when the fashion runway model wears a lion's head, an actual lion's head, but not on her head, but on her dress? Is there room? Is it shocking? Is it a political statement? So many questions when Schiaparelli designer Daniel Rosenberry decided he'd shock the fashion world in Paris with a lion's head placed strategically over the right shoulder of a model's long black dress. The lion's mane is in full view, eyes, nose, mouth with fangs. It's a conversation starter for sure, along the lines of, what's that lion doing on your shoulder? Just resting? And what did you do with the rest of it? Is this just the thing for someone looking to buy a trophy for a trophy wife? A pro-hunting statement? No, said Rosenberry to the New York Times' Vanessa Friedman. This was his ode to one of his favorite poems, Dante's Inferno. You know, lust, pride, avarice. And in Paris, it was hot, especially when billionaires Kylie Jenner was behind it all. I talked with PETA Sr.VP Lisa Lange, who deals with celebrity, about what it all means and whether the faux heads on the dresses were in fact vegan. The answer's now on the PETA Podcast. I consume a lot of news, and I hadn't seen anyone talk about Kylie Jenner yet. I mean, I heard that she renamed her son. She went from Wolf to, I know how you pronounce it, Air,
I think. Yeah,
Air, which is like what, after tennis shoes, or someone said it means in, it refers to a private part in an Arabic language. I don't know, but
or billionaire is what I've heard.
Billionaire,
closer to what.
Yeah, I mean, so I know that Kylie Jenner is kind of like she's like a magnet to, people want to know what she's up to. Well, what is this thing with the lion head? When you talk about the lion head, I thought, lion head? Where does it go on a dress? So
Yeah, the really good question, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't really go on a dress, but designer Schiaparelli, I think is how he says his name, put one there along with a wolf head and a jaguar head. And it was really funny, Emil, because I woke up that morning and I quickly do a search. I oversee our celebrity division. So I tend to kind of look at like new stories. And anything the Kardashians do is big news, essentially. You know that. So I saw her in this dress with this big lion head on it. And I am not a fashion person, but I looked at it and I was like, well, that's really silly. But wow, like clearly it wasn't a real animal head. And so I've been with PETA for 30 years. So you have to understand that when I see something like that, I'm like, wow, that's really innovative. And thank God it's not a real lion. And then I start thinking, well, if they can do it for a dress, they can certainly do it for film and television, because I work with animals in film and television. We're trying to get all wild animals out of filming. So I was like, this is just kind of great.
Yeah. And it was a faux lion head.
Yeah. It was a faux lion, like where you'd put a corsage, it was just the silliest thing in the whole wide world.
Really? It was like
out of her chest.
It was, so like it was like a chess piece, sort of like
kind of like it's a full dress. And like the lion one that Naomi Campbell wore had the lion head at the top, and then the rest of the dress was faux fur, same black color. And it was stunning, and the jaguar was the same thing. It was like a snow leopard, and it was a head at the top for the bodice. And then the rest of it was the print of a snow leopard fur, but it was made with faux fur. So of course we're sitting here having known that people used fur forever, having known that, we wouldn't have put it past people to use real animals in situations like this. So I felt the warm and fuzzies over it. And then all these people started to troll Kylie and the designer, and the press picked up on it. And I was like, well, what's going on here? And people were super upset seeing this, thinking that it was a promotion or in support of trophy hunting.
What was it?
I thought, I was like, oh, okay. Didn't see that, didn't think of that, but can't fault him for thinking of that. So we watched this dialogue, and then the press started to go crazy. The press started to email us, what do you think? What do you think? And our response was that we thought it was incredibly innovative. We're thrilled that no real fur was used, but the designer saying that no animals were harmed for these dresses isn't true, because they were made in part of wool and silk. So it gave us an opportunity to say, not so much. The violence in the wool industry is every bit as violent as the trophy hunting idiots and the fur industry. It is, after all, a sheep's fur, right? So we were able to talk. I mean, it was just like such a win-win, because the dialogue was so all about trophy hunting, and animal people and kind people everywhere were really upset by these designs. We were able to talk about trophy hunting, wool, the boiling of silkworms, so the discussion was massive, really good for animals. And I was like, wow, haven't we come a long way? Because the condemnation against trophy hunting because of this silly dress or line of dresses I don't know. I just felt really chuffed by the whole discussion.
Was Kylie Jenner even aware that she would drum up this kind of response at this couture show in Paris when she put a dress on with a lion's head on her chest? I mean, people are looking for different things on the chest of a woman on her, wearing a dress. When they see a lion's head, it's almost like it's a roar of a different kind, really.
Yeah. So I think Kylie knows that she's going to get a response. She can sneeze and she's going to get a response. This is just a Kardashian phenomenon, right? I don't think, I can't be in her head, but I don't think that she or Irina Shayk, who also wore it, or Naomi Campbell, or the designer, I can't imagine they knew the response was going to be what it would be, because as far as we can tell, for all of those people, they were not promoting trophy hunting.
Yeah.
And I think they probably saw it as just like I did. It was just like kind of beautiful and amazing and really weird, but I don't think they thought they were going to be trolled over it for promoting trophy hunting. Mm-hmm. And Irina actually posted on Instagram. She was clearly angry that people were claiming she was promoting trophy hunting. And I do think motivation matters. Like they not always, people do stupid things without thinking it through. I don't think this really rises to that level. I think it was just anyway.
Well, it's so odd looking, and just so that people, if they can't, if they try to envision this, if they haven't seen it, like I was sort of in the dark. I hadn't seen it yet, but it's like, all right, like I have a little Beanie Baby here.
Yeah.
And imagine the Beanie Baby on your chest, only it's, instead of a Beanie Baby, it's like a maxi lion's head. I mean, it really is a big lion's head. When I finally saw it, I said, this is not just like a little, applique on your lapel. This is like a lion's head.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous and kind of wonderful. And, that's the other thing is when I saw it, we've all seen just kind of through the years, just these silly things like, remember Bjork's swan dress?
Yeah.
And then you've seen people do like coats made of teddy bears. Mm-hmm. And this is what that reminded me of, except in 2023, the lion's head looked very real and regal, but clearly fake, so I really didn't see the storm coming. Yeah. And I feel like I pride myself on kind of being able to go, oh boy, this is going to go in this direction. In this case, I was like totally caught off guard.
Yeah. And yet, all right, you mentioned the other models, Shalom Harlow, Naomi Campbell. They also wore animal heads on their dress. But Kylie's got the biggest reaction. That's because she's just Kylie Jenner, right?
She's Kylie Jenner. I mean, that's just a Kardashian thing. I mean, Shalom Harlow is incredibly sympathetic to animal rights. She never would have done it if she'd thought that it was somehow offensive or promoted something. And it doesn't. I mean, we do have to take into consideration who the audience is for high fashion, not your average trophy hunter. Yeah. So it's not like people are going to go out and go, you know what? Kylie Jenner wore a fake lion body, because some of them are the full body. They're not even just the head. So I'm going to go out and shoot animals in Africa. I mean, I do think it's important that we see this through. And I do also wish that the energy and the ferocity with which people responded to this, they would apply to actual issues that are harming animals, like wool. You know, we have a campaign against Urban Outfitters right now, and that's Anthropology, Free People, and Urban Outfitters, because they sell a lot of animal parts, including wool and down. And wool is the violence in the wool industry and how sheep are every day beaten for their wool. They have their necks broken. They are sheared and cut up, and their wounds are sewn shut with big, thick needles without the use of any anesthesia, day in and day out, even when someone says they're supplying like responsible or humane wool, which is total garbage, as we know. That's violence that we're all part of if you buy wool. Very few people trophy hunt anymore. Just a bunch of cowards around the world do that, which we will see, I think, an end to in our lifetime. But a lot of people wear wool. And I'd go so far as to say a lot of people wear wool who are coming out against these strange outfits.
Yeah.
So I just encourage people to just kind of take a moment and go, all right, I'm pissed. What can I do with my anger? I know I'll join PETA's Urban Outfitters campaign and I'll pledge today never to wear wool or silk, because that's something that we can do as individuals.
Yeah. I mean, because the models, Shalom Harlow, Naomi Campbell, they wore the dress, and Shake actually wore the lion's head. Kylie wore one, but she wasn't modeling it apparently. But it people reacted, but it wasn't perfect because they used wool and also there was some silk. Tell me about the silk use and why people should be outraged by silk use.
For me, it's just like, I want to know if something is made from someone. I don't care if it's a bug or if it's a sheep or it's a mink, and to get silk, they do boil silkworms alive. And I think that's cruel. And I think most people think that's cruel. So we need to do away with that. We don't need it. There's so many beautiful, cruelty-free, totally cruelty-free designs now. And I haven't worn it in decades, and I do fine.
And they could have been vegan had they not had those little, missteps. But still, in terms of the trophy hunting, it was a way to get, although it was perhaps unintended, it did bring this reaction to trophy hunting. Were you surprised, though, when the media, the worldwide media, went crazy and went to PETA for a response, went to PETA to say, PETA, is this okay? They want, because the objective press would not opine that, what a thing, this terrible thing that we're seeing on the runways in Paris. But they would go to PETA to get the reaction. And I bet you they were surprised. Huh?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, every major outlet came to us, or they picked it up from one another. And I was like, okay, this is what we're talking about today. Every day working at PETA, it's a little bit different, because it's like you wake up in the morning and go, what's the thing that's going to happen today? And this was the thing that happened that day. And I was so grateful for it. All of a sudden, we're talking about trophy hunting in the wool industry. I'm like, bring it. That's great. And it also shows you how far we've come, because the press is calling PETA and saying, okay, what do you think about this? And let's talk about it. And they did. And they covered our full statement, which was a condemnation of the wool industry. And of course, the trophy hunting, which we've investigated. And so, I was kind of surprised, but it is true that whenever there's a Kardashian involved in something, there's going to be a lot of attention on it.
Yeah, but it also says something about PETA's place in the world, where something happens and immediately they say, well, what does PETA think? Or what is PETA going to say? Or is PETA going to react to this? Yeah,
it's really great, because as I mentioned, I've been with PETA for 30 plus years, and it's like, wow, how things have changed. I mean, everybody kind of knows that we are the authority on how animals are treated, animal rights. We've done 1 million investigations into hundreds of different abusive industries. And so we've shown that we get results. We've gotten designers to go fur-free and some cruelty-free. The vegan movement is just so powerful. We're getting laboratory experiments shut down right, left, and center. And so now I look at us and I go, that's great. This is where it should be. And we are the authority on these things. We are the activists. And so I love that we're getting called, because we take every opportunity that we can to not only talk about the victories we've had, but the work that needs to be done. And the work that needs to be done can really be solved by every single person getting involved. And that's just getting involved can simply mean what you buy. Just don't buy wool anymore. Don't buy silk. It's easy. If you can just decide today, you know what? I'm going to wake up in the morning and the next thing I buy is going to be 100% animal free. Easy. Yeah. Just to add to that, I had a colleague that said something really interesting the other day. And she said when she decided to go vegan, it was a relief, because she knew that meant she was never, ever going to have to think about it. She knew she'd never go to a circus. She would never wear leather. She would never put an animal part in her mouth ever again. And that was it. And it was a relief, because she knew what the rest of her life looked like, and she would never have to debate that. And I thought, that's interesting.
It's simple. And now we know from Kylie Jenner that if you're going to wear a lion, make sure it's a faux lion head.
A faux lion head, and also no wool, no
wool. Well, do you think this is going to be a thing that people are going to start? I mean, that's always the question. After a big fashion runway show, after Fashion Week, that looks lovely on those, models. But are we going to see this at the mall? Are we going to see this on city streets? Are people walking around with lion heads and tigers and that kind of thing?
No, it's ridiculous. And I don't think anyone's going to be wearing it beyond the show. I mean, I may eat my words, but I don't think so. I mean, there are designers out there who are just kind of try to shock, but then they also have, and this whole thing was like, he had another model in red from top to bottom. So their face was painted and they were just, so this was just kind of a shocking, hey, let's get my name on the map type situation. But no, I don't think you're going to see people walking down your street wearing big lion's heads. No.
Well, all right. It could be a trend, but it usually starts with something like this and then it trickles down. But it says something about fashion in the fight for, against animal cruelty. It says something about how important fashion is because, people talk about it. It has the power to influence and motivate behavior.
Yeah. And in fairness, I mean, the people who didn't like it and saw it as a promotion of trophy hunting, that's an argument that they make, you're seeing a faux lion's head on a dress, right? Or a wolf's head. How is that going to translate into your average person? Like, what are they going to do as a result of seeing that? But our argument is your average person isn't going to go out and trophy hunt. They're not going to do it. That ship has sailed. It's just a bunch of really violent, horrible people who are still doing that. So I don't see it translating into anything harmful for animals. And what's more, the discussion surrounding it for the 2-3 days that we were able to have that discussion really educated a lot of people about not only trophy hunting, which you can't do a ton about, but as I mentioned, cruelty-free clothing.
All right. So, Lisa, I'm so glad that you took the time to talk about Kylie Jenner, but everything she does, everything she touches tends to be, blown up. I just got the picture or saw the picture just a couple of days ago, and I'm sure maybe other people will see it in social media. I'm going to be on the lookout for my first lion's head dress.
All right.
Where I go. Hey, can you tell me, can you want to take some time to update me on some other things that are happening that we should be aware of?
Well, we have, we've talked about this before, but we have our Oscats that are going to be coming out soon, right before the Oscars. There are some films and some performances that were worth awards this year from us. Good messaging or costumes and that kind of thing. So that'll be coming out soon.
You're not talking about maybe the vegan hot dogs and everything everywhere all at once? Were they vegan hot dogs even?
I don't know if they were. That didn't make the list.
Oh, well.
Think of it. But I'll look into that.
I
I'm
think
trying to think.
I think Oscar
Yeah.
Mayer shunned them, so they might have been vegan hot dogs. I don't know.
Yeah, they might have been. Yeah, no, there were some interesting mentions this year, but we'll be releasing that list in the upcoming weeks now that they've announced the Oscar nominations. Our dear friend Diane Warren was nominated for an Oscar for one of her songs, and she's a big animal rights gal. And, on everything else, we're just working away. Next week, we're launching the Without Consent display at UCLA, which is just really, it's just so beautiful. And it's going to go on, it's going on. It started in DC and it's going on a nationwide tour, inviting mostly students to come out and look at all the animals that are used and abused and killed in laboratories around the world. And of course, without their consent, we blind them and we poison them and we poke things into their eyes and we burn them. And we do it all without their consent. And it's interesting because people will go, well, animals sacrifice themselves. No, they don't. They don't. They have no choice here. And as a woman, this really strikes me hard because I don't want anyone ever telling me what I can and should do. And women have been victims to the whole without consent thing, for decades and decades. And I feel very strong about fighting against that. And I think that we should all transfer that to animals. And so the without consent display, I think, is very compelling, especially for young people who are growing up in a time where the whole consent thing is being discussed. And we're asking them to extend past themselves to, not empower animals, but just leave them alone. They're not ours to do with what we will, which goes back to PETA's motto from day one, that animals are not ours to experiment on or use for any purpose.
Yeah, well, we look forward to that exhibit coming up in Los Angeles. Also, with the Oscars coming up, after we've done this talk about Kylie Jenner, I'm wondering, red carpet, what are the odds we're going to see a lion's head?
We'll see, right? We'll see. I can't say.
The MGM lion was a natural.
Yeah. That's now a CG lion.
Oh, that's a CG lion.
Now it is. It wasn't initially, but they changed it a few years ago, which is such progress.
It is. I'm going to go out and see all those MGM movies I shunned now. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for joining us on the PETA Podcast.
Yeah, always happy to, Emil. Thank you so much.
Lisa Lange is a senior VP of PETA, dealing with celebrities and Hollywood, and now dresses with faux lion heads and other animal heads. Faux, of course, but not necessarily totally vegan. For more, go to PETA.org. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to send a link of this show to your friends. Tell them you like the PETA Podcast. Contact us at PETA.org. You can find me on Twitter at Emil Amok, or see my vlog at amok.com, or see my work at ALDEF, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. That's ALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog. Once again, thank you for listening. Check out all our episodes on your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts, where you can subscribe to as well as rate and review the show. It helps get the word out about the issues you care about. Our music is provided by CarbonWorks. Check them out on YouTube. And join us again next time for more insight into animal rights and the fight for a cruelty-free world on the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo.